Hola, bienvenidos. Welcome to Spanish con Señora Bisbee. In today's video, we're going to take a look at telling time. Time comes up all the time, just like that. So maybe it's best that you know how to use it in Spanish. Let's take a look. To ask what time is it, you ask ¿Qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? Well, we need to start with the minutos, minutes. So when we're looking at a clock, so here's an old-fashioned clock, you need to figure out where the minutes are, and that's going to determine our process moving forward. Are they from the 12 to the 6, so 30 minutes, somewhere over here, or do they fall on the left-hand side of the clock? That's going to determine how we phrase our answer in Spanish. Let's take a look. Okay, so before we get too far into this, let's just remember that on a clock face like this, that the shorthand represents the hour, the longhand represents the minutes. Now the minutes are really important in Spanish because they decide the sentence structure you're going to use for how you state the time. Now you'll see this yellow arc here. When the minutes fall into this section, that's when we use these formulas outlined on this page. So all the way from the 12, so if the hour was on the dot, so if it was 3 o'clock on the dot, all the way to 3:30, so the minutes could go all the way to 30 here at the 6, we're going to use these formulas. Now, which one do you use? There's two. Well, now that depends on the hour. So if you look at a clock, we've got numbers 1 through 12. If we look at them, 1 is the only singular number here. All the other numbers are plural. If I gave you one car, you've only got one. But if I gave you 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 12, those are all plural numbers. So, in Spanish we know plural versus singular matters a lot, because of our verbs especially. So, if it's 1 o'clock, the hour is 1, your sentence will start with es la una. Es because it's singular. Es la is singular also. Una. Why is it feminine? Well, because we're talking about la hora, the time. The hour, literally. Es la una. Now let's say there's some minutes involved. Let's say it's 1:10, for example. We would say and then the number of minutes. So 10 in that case. We would say es la una y 10 for it's 1:10. But what if you're working with a plural hour? So if the hour is 2 to 12, any of those, and remember the minutes are over here somewhere, we use the second option. Son las. These are plural words, which is why they go with these hours specifically. So let's say we've got 3:05 here, right? We would say son las tres for the hour, y cinco for the number of minutes, y meaning and, just like outlined in purple here. Son las tres y cinco. That says it's 3:05. So again, when the minutes fall over here, from all the way to 12 to 6, we use these two formulas. You'll notice that what makes them unique is that they use and for the minutes. It's almost like a math formula. You're saying it's 3 and 5. 3 hours, 5 minutes, aka 3:05. And of course, if it was just the hour on the dot, you just would leave out and the number of minutes. So let's say if it was just 3, we'd get rid of y cinco, so we'd just say son las tres. Okay, so what happens if the minutes aren't on that first side? What if they're on the other side of the clock? Well, from 31 all the way up to 59, we're going to use this method outlined here on this slide. So for example, we've got 4:45 right here. Something to remember on this style of clock is that as the new hour approaches, the hour hand is actually going to creep closer and closer to the new hour. So it won't be dead on 4. It'll be a little bit closer to 5. So when we're working with this is like in English if you've ever heard anyone say like, oh, it's 4:45. That's what we're doing just in Spanish. So we're working with the next hour. If I say it's 4:45, I mean it's 4:45. 5's the new hour, the next one coming up in 15 minutes. So what's the next hour? That's going to determine the formula you use. If the next hour, the newest hour that's coming up, is 1, then we start with es la una. But if the new hour is 2 through 12, we use son las. Remember, singular, plural. Then we state how many minutes are left to get there. Menos means minus. So then we put our number of minutes to get to that new hour at the end. So for example, if it's 4:45, I would say that son las 5 menos 15. So literally it's 15 of 5. So I've got 15 minutes until it will be 5 o'clock. The hour is 5, which is why I went with son las, because that's plural. Menos. And then how many minutes until I get to 5? When will this minute hand get back up to the 12? 15. 5, 10, 15. Therefore, 15. So 4:45 would be son las 5 menos 15. Now there are some variations to when the minutes fall on this left-hand side of the clock. You don't always have to use the menos method. There's 3 different ways we could state the time as 9:40. We could use the version I just went over, son las 10 menos 20. So literally you've got 20 minutes until it's going to be 10 o'clock. So it's 20 of 10. I like this method because you don't have to know as many numbers. The highest number you'll get to using this is 31. So that means if you know your numbers confidently up to 31, that's all you're going to need to be able to use this method. If you're good with bigger numbers, you could just state the plain old time. It's 9:40. Son las 9:40. But again, that means you'll have to know all your numbers up to 59 very well to be able to confidently get that second half. But again, perfectly fine. It's accurate. 9:40. Son las 9:40. The last version you might hear, faltan 20 para las 10. Literally, faltar means to lack or like to miss. So it's saying 20 minutes are missing for 10 o'clock. So again, it's similar to our first with menos. You're saying how many minutes are left until you get to that new hour. So all 3 of these things say 9:40. They're all viable options for how you're going to state the time if the minutes fall on the left-hand side of this clock. Pick the option that's easiest to remember for you and that uses the numbers you're most confident with. Okay, let's talk about vocabulario con la hora, so vocab with time. Remember, la hora means time when we're talking about like literally what's on a clock. So we've got some vocab words that are very useful for this. For example, instead of saying 30 every time 30 comes up, so a half hour is passed, half is media, because when it's 30 minutes, it's literally half of an hour, so we can say media instead of 30. What about 15? Well, if we were to look at a circular clock, 15 minutes is actually 1/4, so 1/4 of a whole hour. If we times 15 by 4, it'll make 60, which is a whole hour. So we say cuarto instead of 15. That's another option. What if you want to talk about AM and PM? Well, if you were to write the time shorthand, as in numerals, you can leave AM and PM because those are actually from Latin. They're not Spanish. But if you're going to say it out loud or you're going to write it out for something, if something's in the morning, you would say de la mañana, day with time. If it's in the afternoon, de la tarde, and night, de la noche. Now the crossover where afternoon and night happens is kind of a gray zone, so what you decide kind of, adds to your message, how early or late something tends to happen. Then we've got midnight and midday. So to be clear, on a clock, midnight would actually be read as 12 a.m. To say it's midnight in Spanish, we say es la medianoche. Midday or noon would be 12 p.m. That would be said es el mediodía. Literally, it's midday. Some other helpful terms when dealing with time: early, temprano; late, tarde; on time, a tiempo. Okay, time to give this a try for yourself. ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? Write these times out as if that was the time right now. So if it's 1:10 in the morning, I want you to say, it's 1:10 in the morning. All written out as words, even the numerals. How would you do that? Pause the video. Let's give it a try. Es la 1:10 de la mañana. It's 1:10 in the morning. Es la because it's una for the hour, singular. and the minutes would be on the right-hand side, so we'll use and 10, y 10 de la mañana. 10:45 at night, son las 11 menos cuarto de la noche, so it's 11:15, or you can just state it as it is, son las 10:45 de la noche. 6:20 in the morning, son las 6:20 de la mañana. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, son las 2 de la tarde. Of course, you might also hear son las 2 en punto, like on the dot, just like you'd say in English, you might hear, if you're really emphasizing, oh, it's 2 o'clock right on the dot right now. And lastly, 3:35 in the afternoon, son las 4 menos 25 de la tarde, so it's 25 minutes of 4 in the afternoon, or simply state it as it is, son las 3:35 de la tarde. Great job, you just stated the time. You answered the question, ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? What about when we want to talk about at a certain time? For example, if I want to ask, what time's the game at? Or at what time is the game? ¿A qué hora es el partido? ¿A qué hora is how we get at what time. So remember our formulas that we just used to state what time it is. So for example, if it's 1:15, es la 1:15. That's how I would say it's 1:15 right now. But what if I want to change that to get at what time? Easy. All I gotta do is I swap out es or son at the start of the formulas I was using before for a, because in Spanish a means at for time. So easy peasy, es goes away, I put a. So let's say the game is at 1:15. I could say, if someone asked me, ¿A qué hora es el partido? Oh, a la 1:15, at 1:15. What if it's at 10 of 10? Well, get rid of son, add a for at, a las 10 menos 10. Easy as that. The rest of the formula stays the same. We just get rid of the verb at the start, es or son, and use a for at instead. One more example for you. ¿A qué hora tienes la prueba? So at what time do you have the quiz? Tengo la prueba a las 3 de la tarde, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's how you tell time in Spanish. That's how you work with la hora. Muy bien hecho, very well done. Gracias, buena suerte, y nos vemos.